Hello and welcome to the Nerdy Things with Brendan channel. I'm your host Brendan, and today I am talking about books I read in October of 2023. I've done a couple of these videos now and they do pretty good and you guys seem to like them, so here's another one. So last month I was reading the Mr. and Miss X series with Gambit and Rogue, and it was very good. I really enjoyed that. And you can watch last month's videos for my thoughts on that series. But after reading that, I wanted more Gambit, so I started his 2012 series. And the first book in the series is Gambit Volume 1, Once a Thief. I don't want to give too much away in case you want to read this, but I really enjoyed this book. It starts with Gambit showing up to this rich businessman's party, and this guy actually goes in after these supervillains fight the superheroes and collects equipment and gadgets left over from the supervillains. And Gambit bites off a little bit more than he can handle, and now this guy wants to get a piece of his equipment back. There's also other mysterious characters at play here, but overall it's a very good book. The next book in the series is Gambit Volume 2, Tombstone Blues, and the whole situation of stealing from a businessman gets other people involved who now have a shared interest in this one device. And one of these people is Tombstone, the Spider-Man villain. With reports of Gambit working with criminals around the globe and pulling off all these heists, this makes his ex-girlfriend Rogue nervous. Rogue is now an Avenger, and Gambit's actions are gaining the attention of even the Avengers. But this book I thought was very good. I don't know about better than the first, but like just as good. And overall the series is very good so far, and I'm thoroughly enjoying it. And the final book in the series is Gambit Volume 3, King of Thieves. Because Gambit is a member of the X-Men, he's widely regarded as a superhero, and many of the criminals he associates with begin to question if he is still their supposed King of Thieves. And Gambit's past has built him a reputation as one of the best thieves to ever live, the best in the world, and even Gambit is now questioning himself and whether he's a thief, a hero, or something in the middle. And one of the mysterious parties involved in the retrieval of this gadget Gambit stole offers him the chance to see who he really is and prove himself. But overall, this book was a fantastic conclusion to the series. I loved it. I highly recommend this series. It was probably one of my favorites right now. It was great. After reading the 2012 Gambit series, the next Gambit series I had to read was one from 2022 that only lasted 5 issues. So I read the book Gambit Thick as Thieves. And I really wanted to like this book. I love Gambit. I think he's one of the best X-Men, if not the best X-Men. But it was so boring and a bit confusing. And this one heavily relied on whatever was going on in the X-Men series. So even I couldn't just pick it up and understand what's going on. But Gambit is partnered up with Storm of the X-Men, who is now a child for some reason. And the Shadow King is also after her, but that's kind of forgotten about after issue 1. It was weird. But Gambit and Storm meet this lady who's a Marine, and Gambit falls in love with her almost immediately after very little. It was very forced. But nothing really happened in the book until issue 3, and then even then I can't even really tell you what happened. But some guys basically show up because reasons. I don't know reasons, but they just show up and they fight. And the girl Gambit likes is injured and badly scarred now. And now Gambit basically doesn't love her, and the series is over. But it was pretty freaking bad. And I will not be adding it to my collection. I love Gambit, but this was by far the worst Gambit series ever. And after reading that trash fire, I really needed a book I love. Every now and then, a really bad book just puts me in a bad mood and makes me dislike comics. I don't want to read anymore. So I need my ace in the hole, Nightwing. Nightwing has long been my favorite character, and I had 2 volumes sitting on my shelf in the current series that I had to get caught up on. So I read Nightwing Volume 2, Get Grayson. And I talked about this series a lot in a past video, but I love this series. The guy writing it, Tom Taylor, he just gets Nightwing, and he gives us absolute fan service, and I'm okay with that. I never understand people who don't want that in a book or a movie. Like, I want a book or a movie to give me what I want and to, like, do the character justice. And I get wanting a surprise, but sometimes that goes very poorly. Like, look at The Last Jedi. But this book was great. I have seriously read, like, every Nightwing book, series, everything. And I think this series is the best since Chuck Dixon back in the 90s. But Blockbuster's back, the real Blockbuster. And even Nightwing's old landlord from the 90s, Clancy, is back. It's fantastic. I love his three-legged dog, Hallie. I love the relationship with Barbara. The Titans pop in, Batman pops in. This just feels like a Nightwing book written by a real Nightwing fan. And it was so good. I highly recommend it. The next book I had to read to get caught up on Nightwing was Nightwing Volume 3, The Battle for Bludhaven's Heart. The feud between Blockbuster and Dick Grayson comes to an epic conclusion in this book. All of Nightwing's allies get a chance to shine. The Titans are here, Batman, everybody. And there's a new villain they've been showing off in the series called Heartless, and we get to see some more of him. Now watch, he ends up being like the Weeknd in disguise, and it's all a tie-in to his music and his album. But all jokes aside, this book was amazing. And this might go down in history as one of the best Nightwing books. I really don't want to overhype it for anyone, but I love Nightwing so much. For years, he's been my favorite, and I just relate to him so much. But this book was like my Super Bowl. Everything came to a conclusion, and it was awesome. Nightwing won. It was fantastic. It was so darn good. I cannot recommend it enough. It was fantastic. So after getting caught up on Nightwing, I wanted to try something a little different. I really love Godzilla and the Monsterverse, Kong, Ghidorah, all that stuff. And I had just decided to rewatch the movies, and there's tie-in comics. So I watched the movies, and then I read the comics. But down the line, I want to make some videos on it, and I likely will make like a Monsterverse comics reading order video about it. But the first book is Godzilla Awakening, which is a tie-in to Godzilla. It's a prequel for that movie. And honestly, I'd only recommend this one to a big Godzilla fan who wants some more lore and history around Monarch and the Monsterverse. But it really didn't add much to the story or even really do anything in the book. But it did enforce a lot of things I hadn't picked up on in the movies. But it hasn't done anything remarkable. It's not a groundbreaking book. It's just kind of how the movie tie-in books go, you know? Like, they never really add anything. They just kind of enforce what happens in the movies. So you can totally skip this one if you want. I did like it, but not much happened. The next book I read was called Monsterverse Titanthology, Volume 1, and despite this, there's only one volume of this book. But this book actually collects two books in one, those being Skull Island, The Birth of Kong, and Godzilla Aftershock. Skull Island, The Birth of Kong takes place after Kong's Skull Island and shows another group of people who venture to Skull Island. Nothing tremendously interesting happens in this book, and it was more boring, but it's still included. It was definitely the boring book of the two. But I'd really only recommend this one again if you want to check out like more King Kong and Godzilla lore, Monarch stuff. It was pretty darn boring. But as I said, this book collects two books in one, so the other book, Godzilla Aftershock, takes place after the Godzilla movie and shows more of the aftermath after Godzilla's battle with the Mutos in San Francisco. And nothing super crazy happens in this book as well, but it is the better of the two in my opinion. And same deal with the other book, only really check it out if you're a big fan of the Monsterverse, otherwise you're going to be pretty bored. Then the next book I read this month was GVK Godzilla Dominion. It's a follow-up to Godzilla King of the Monsters and a prequel to Godzilla vs. Kong. And almost nothing happens in this book. It was pretty darn boring. I'd almost skip it completely if I were you. It really added nothing to the overall story. And that's really all I have to say. Like, nothing happened. But it's from Godzilla's point of view. So there's almost no text. It's all like narration about what he does. And it's almost like a Godzilla day in the life book. And the final book I read this month was GVK Kingdom Kong, and this one follows yet another group of people who go to Skull Island, and nothing really happens in this book as well. It's a little boring. It really doesn't add anything to Kong's overall story. He's still just on Skull Island until he fights Godzilla. And again, I'd only really check out this one if you're a fan of the Monsterverse, and even then, it's one of the more boring books. And that's all the books I read this month. Thanks for watching. I appreciate those who watch these videos each month and support the channel. If you like these monthly book reviews, please leave a comment asking for more. They don't get a ton of views, but they aren't that hard to make. They don't take too much time. So as long as you guys are liking them, you're watching them, I'll keep making them. So thanks again. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.